Hi. You're probably wondering, where did I get this from? Actually, I made it, and I can teach you how to make it on my YouTube. Oh my god, subscribe. Here's my holy grail, my list of things that went wrong and what went right. And here, this is what went right. These are the materials that you'll be needing for this costume. And here are the only patterns I kept from the project, and they're only for the details, so I'll explain how to do the base in just 1 second. When you're working on any creative project, whether it be drawing or even prop making, you need to gather references. By looking at the reference, we're able to define a clear, basic shape. This shape has 11 sides. We will be using this shape as a pattern for the base. This pattern would need to be cut twice, one for each side, from the material that we'll be using. Oh my god, I'm using a reference. Here I'm cutting out the pattern on a styrofoam paper board, whatever they sell at the dollar store.
I did not expect this song to play. Oh, yep. See, that's what happens when you cut it out. The thing is doing that.
After successfully tracing the pattern onto a new area of the board, I carefully cut with an X-Acto knife for clean, smooth, sharp edges. I do this very slowly, and this video is very sped up, so it took a while. I wouldn't recommend scissors because scissors can damage the board and potentially warp the edges and the shape. So for the best option, you should use an X-Acto knife. A sharp one, to be exact. In order to make your prop a 3D object, you're going to need it to have dimension. Now, in order to do that, you're going to need stuffing. Think of an Oreo ice cream cookie sandwich. That white stuff in the middle is keeping the whole sandwich together. Start by measuring the desired width of the chainsaw onto extra pieces of foam board, and start cutting them out as straight panels. The length doesn't really matter because I end up cutting them anyways to make more. Then I start rolling them up and gluing them into place onto each side piece. These are going to be the support beams. These will not be seen from the outside and will never see living sunlight ever again, so it's okay if they're messy. Just make sure all the width measurements are all equal so you don't end up with a wonky lopsided chainsaw. Here's a top view so you can see what I'm doing better. I think I ended up using 3 support beams, and I hot glued them together, but mind you, it was very hard to keep them in place because rolled up cardboard and styrofoam doesn't necessarily hold, so I had to keep it there for a while for it to kind of stick. And I'm pretty sure I ended up using duct tape to really seal the deal, and it doesn't really matter again because it's going to be covered up anyways. So, yep. Next, I made a mixture of Elmer's glue with water and strips of newspaper to make, I'm sure you've heard of it in elementary school. Yeah, paper mache, yeah! I start covering the base of the support beams in paper mache so that I have extra support in the base. Because you don't want your chainsaw to completely fall apart inside of itself, and you have no idea how to fix it without taking apart the whole thing. That would be a nightmare. So really starting sturdy from the beginning is an important step. As you can see, I'm gluing the supports to the other side of the chainsaw, and I'm keeping it there just so it stays in place. Next, I wet some more newspaper with the paper mache mixture, and I cover the base of the support systems in more paper mache, because remember, you need a sturdy base so it doesn't fall apart from the inside. Now on to step 2, which is cutting out more pieces to make the 3D shape actually 3D. Now, in order to do that, the width of all these pieces need to be the same so it's all equal, but the length actually depends and varies on which side it's on. For example, side 2 won't be the same as side 1 or 3. So you can actually see here how I'm measuring out each side. So I'm kind of just eyeballing it. But I do use a ruler for straight lines because that is very important, or else your freaking chainsaw is going to be like all wobbly. And using an X-Acto knife really helps for those clean, smooth cut lines. Here I had my boyfriend help me. I'm pretty sure I kind of traced or marked down where the parts should be on each side, because I'm not sure how I got the measurements so right, unless I really did measure it with a ruler, but I doubt I did. I never do that. Here it actually fits perfectly, thank goodness. Cut out each side and adjust when needed, and then once you have all the parts together, you can glue them. I like to use hot glue or super glue, but either one works. It doesn't really matter because everything's going to be paper mache in the end. Just make sure it stays still. As I'm doing a voiceover right now, there's an animal on me, so if my voice sounds different, it's because I'm trying my best not to anger her. Right, Chloe? Back to the video, I shave off the extra sides, and this was actually the most satisfying part for me in this project, and also to my boyfriend too. We decided to do this because somehow it felt like an easier option than just measuring and cutting it out, but it was really satisfying, and I think it was worth it. It felt easier because you could just glue it on the side and just shave off the rest. Boom! Next, we took large pieces of newspaper and dipped it in paper mache and just splashed it on the base. Of course, using smaller strips of newspaper seemed like a better idea because 5 pencils together are not going to break compared to 1 pencil, if that even made sense, but multiple layers of smaller pieces all mingled together are going to make a strong base. Now on to step 3, which is actually making the blade of the chainsaw. So you see those ridges right there? Think about that for later. For this, I'm going to use the sandwich method again. So there's going to be 2 cutout pieces, and you know these gym mats or whatever, those ridges look like the ridges there, and that will be the stuffing to our Oreo sandwich. Next, I cut out the blade pieces that I drew onto cardboard, and yes, I did eyeball it and use a ruler for straight line measurements, but for most of it, I really just eyeballed it. And once I cut out the first piece, I just used that piece as a pattern for the other side. I used newspaper strips and paper mache to also cover this in paper mache. We want this to be as sturdy as possible because this is the blade, possibly the thinnest part of the chainsaw, and if this breaks, you are going to be sad. Off camera, I put all the pieces together with hot glue, and now I'm spraying it with metallic spray paint that I got from Walmart. And this gives a really nice reflective shine. This is actually the same technique I used on my Ash Evil Dead chainsaw, which I have the video to that on my YouTube. So please check that out if you're interested. Now on to step 4, which is making the handle. It's actually made out of cardboard. So I cut out the basic shape like 5 times on a piece of cardboard, and then I glued it all together for the desired thickness. Then I covered it with paper mache, so it's sturdy. I believe everything in this project is literally covered in paper mache besides the EVA foam that we'll be covering on later. But as for now, I believe this is the only footage I have of anything related to the handle. As I explained in my little animation, I'm sure it's easy to understand what I did. Remember to use reference photos when creating patterns. You really want to get that down. I mean, really, there's nothing wrong with eyeballing it like I did. It just depends on your preference. When working with paper mache, you should aim for a minimum of 2 layers or more. This will add stability and strength to your thing. I used my boyfriend's help and a hairdryer to help dry this thing, but I believe it took overnight for it to fully dry before I could paint it. Gosh, you can barely see anything in the screen, but what I did was I cut out a hole, well, after it dried, into the base, enough for the handle to fit in. Then once it fit perfectly, I surrounded it with glue, specifically hot glue, but you can use super glue and hot glue. so that it really sticks together. And little tip for you guys, I'd really invest in a good hot glue gun because this one drove me nuts while I was working with it because it would randomly die and I'd have to charge it for it to use it again. And now we're on step 5, which is actually making the other handle that's red. Yes, I made this out of PVC pipes with connector rods or whatever those are called, and I covered it in electrical tape. Now, before you glue those pieces together, you should really see how they fit before you do that. So I would recommend to just see how they look and make sure it's not wobbly and lopsided. Then, once you like the fit, you should add the PVC glue within the pieces and just stick them together. If you're young, you should use parental advisory and ask your parents to actually help you with like cutting the PVC pipes, because I did, and I don't want to use a saw. That's scary. Here you can actually see me cover the PVC pipes with red electrical tape, and this was the fastest, cheapest alternative way of like painting it and making it a color. So now we're on to step 6, which requires painting everything black. And by everything, I mean the base and some part of the blade. I'm pretty sure I only used 1 coat of paint because the black paint has great coverage and dries very quickly. Remember to keep the chainsaw chains silver. And would you look at that, I'm using some references in the background. And here's some more footage of me painting it black, but I find it ironic because I'm missing some footage of what I actually should be recording, and I have more than I need. Now on to step 7, which is adding details with painted EVA foam. I was actually in a rush when I made this costume, and I wasn't satisfied with how it looked with the black paint, so I decided to cover it with EVA foam hours before the convention, and I think I was late to it because of it. I wasn't able to record the rest of the details because I was just literally making it right before the convention, but you just cut some pieces out of EVA foam, paint them, and glue them on. Also, I found that using a heat gun really helps to shape the EVA foam, and using super glue actually helped make it stick. And here's the final product. I thought it was really awesome. I wore it to CreepieCon, and here's my boyfriend having a dance off with Pennywise. Here I'm sitting next to Miss Argentina, which is funny because I'm Argentinian. And I also saw Nightmare Bonnie, which is really cool. Pink Pyramid Head was really cool, and TMNT was awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and share the video, and please subscribe.